Thank you, Bishop Daniel, and good morning to those of you who are gathered here today. I wish to acknowledge today's moderator, Bishop Harry, and the planning team, special guests, and my brothers and sisters who share with us all across the world. Good morning. It's a very great pleasure to be your opening presenter at this 49th Healing Conference of the Diocese of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. This Healing Conference is a wonderful and special thing. Yes, wonderful and special. I commend you for it, and I beg you to keep it going until Christ come again. For you may see it only as your healing conference, but I assure you it is much larger than you and your efforts. This is a particular pleasure for me because the last time I addressed this conference was in 2013. The theme then was healing the violence, becoming a kinder and gentler person. My address was entitled, I Am a Healer, drawing a reference to the fact that every single one of us is a healing agent. And of course, at that time, I was also privileged to preach at the closing Mass. So I am delighted to be here. Thank you once again, and may God prosper this ministry and our time together. And now to my address. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Come to us, Lord Jesus Christ, in your understanding love, when all around us seems dark and uncertain, when our faith is low and we cannot feel you near and we find it hard to pray. Come to us then, dear Lord, as you came to your disciples in the darkest hour of the night, and let the light of your presence dispel our fears, renew our trust, and bring peace to our hearts. For your tender mercy's sake. Amen. My brothers and sisters, your theme at this conference is healing, obeying the vision, responding to the challenges. I see in this theme a challenge to all people to have a vision for their own healing and wholeness, to avail themselves of the God who provides means for us to overcome all of the obstacles to our healing and wholeness. And God does this for us in our time, in our locale, in our circumstances, and in our own particular condition. I immediately see in your theme a number of key words. Words like vision, obey, respond, challenges, and of course, that key word, healing. Let's take a moment and look at these words. First of all, vision. Vision. Healing is about obeying the vision, the picture or an understanding of what is to come, what is possible, where you would like to be and where you can be. A vision is a guide, and it provides a sense of purpose and direction. What is the vision that we must be obeying? I could ask you to guess or to suggest. But the vision has to be a vision for us. So that's the vision that we need to be obeying. What does the Bible say about this vision that God has for us? Well, it says lots of things, but I'm only going to mention a few. John chapter 13, a new commandment I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. What this tells us that Jesus' way for us is that love conquers all. What about John chapter 14? If you love me, you will keep my commandments. This teaches us that Jesus called his followers to keep his expectations for their lives if they claim to love him. Another aspect of the vision, Jesus said in John chapter 10, I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Jesus spoke about the full package for humanity that was presented in his own life, his teaching, his miracles, and in the relationships that he formed. He spoke of a way of walking the earthly pilgrimage. What Jesus preached involved conversion, a change of heart, a change of outlook, a modifying of life and priorities, a change from what we are to what God wants us to be. This is the life that he's called us to, that he wants us to have abundantly. And finally, another aspect of God's vision, let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 30. And here is what verses 15 through 18 read. God says, see, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I am commanding you this day, by loving the Lord your God, walking in his ways and observing his commandments, decrees, and ordinances, then you shall live and become numerous, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away and you do not hear, but are led astray to bow down to other gods and to serve them, I declare to you today that you shall perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are crossing over the Jordan to enter and possess. God sets before us life and prosperity, death and adversity, and it's up to us to choose. What a mouthful. God spoke to the children of Israel and laid before them his plan, but they had to choose his path for themselves, choose to do his will. He was not about to force them. This is the vision, my friends, the call, the path that we are called to obey. But how do we understand this vision as it relates to our daily lives and the choices in our local situations? For it's one thing to talk about a wonderful and lofty theme, but we have to bring that theme right down into our own life situations. Let us look at some characters in the Bible then and see how they obeyed, followed God's leading or vision, overcame the challenge that they had, and found healing. There are scores of characters that we could consider, but I'm going to look at 4 today, just 4. Character number 1, Naaman. Naaman's story is found in 2 Kings chapter 5. He was a Syrian general who had leprosy. A slave girl from Israel was working in his home. She told her mistress that a prophet in Israel could heal her master. Naaman goes to Elisha, and Elisha instructs him, go and wash in the river Jordan. Naaman was angry and offended because in Syria there were great rivers like Abana and Pharpar. They were much better than that dirty old Jordan River. Naaman's servants, though, challenged him when they saw his reaction. And what did they say? They said, well, boss, if the prophet told you to do something great, you would have done it. But the prophet told you to do something simple, but you failed to do it. This doesn't make sense, sir, with the greatest respect. And so Naaman went and washed in the Jordan, and he was healed. Naaman's servants challenged him. Naaman almost lost his healing. Naaman had a vision or desire for himself, and his vision for himself was fullness of life. He wanted healing. His challenge, however, was his ego and his arrogance. Do you know who I am? Do you know how powerful I am in Syria and in the rest of the world? I have legions of soldiers and hundreds of servants at my beck and call. And you want me to wash in a second-class river in your third-class country when I come from a first-class country? That was Naaman's arrogance. My friends, sometimes our healing and deliverance is right before us, right within our reach, right in the palm of our hand sometime. And we are too great to accept it. The solution is simple, within arm's length, but we make it complicated because our biggest enemy, our biggest hindrance, our biggest downfall is ourselves. Are you blocking your own healing and deliverance today? I don't know. You'll have to tell me. A second character, Saul. Saul was the first king of Israel. His journey into that role was not easy, since everyone was not willing, accepting of, or cooperative toward him as they should have been. He was tall in stature. He was a formidable soldier and military leader. This made him a crowd favorite and helped him to build influence ultimately. But this brought pressure on him. This brought pressure to him. He also had his own personal and mental struggles. He had wounds from his childhood and his past, and then he had done his share of wrong things as well. Whatever he was dealing with, and we don't know the full extent of Saul's background, but whatever he was dealing with, the Bible tells us that he was a deeply troubled person. And we could imagine him restless, having nightmares even. But the Bible also tells us that David had a certain skill. This shepherd boy was good at playing the harp, and an amazing thing happened. David's skill with music was soothing to Saul, miraculously. But again, there's another issue. For some reason, Saul was deeply troubled by young David. David was only a kid, no threat to the king of Israel, but David troubled Saul. Perhaps it was a personality clash. Perhaps, as we say in the Bahamas, his spirit just didn't take to David. Perhaps he saw something in David that made him jealous. Maybe he saw gifts and potential in this little child that unnerved him. Maybe he realized that David had more gifts than he did. And maybe he even thought that a David might be more suited to be king than he, Saul, was. Now, David did go on to be king sometime later. But all of this is what David caused Saul in terms of discomfort. The Bible tells us that on one occasion, Saul grabbed a spear and went to kill David. David had to pull aside to avoid the spear, and at that he fled. That night, Saul sent soldiers to David's house to stake it out and to kill him when he arrived. What's the lesson in this for us? Well, what Saul teaches us is that often our fear and our hatred are unnecessary. Sometimes our challenge is not the people and the things that we hate or fear. Our enemy is our own fear, our own hurt, our own demons from the past. David had something, a skill on the harp, which helped to soothe Saul and which Saul badly needed. Why would he then choose to harm or to kill the source of his relief? It's because he was mixed up. He was conflicted. He was letting his own dark side get the better of him. He was already the king of Israel. What did he have to worry about? But it only goes to show us that sometimes, even when we rise to our greatest heights, we don't have the maturity, the wisdom, the personal healing and resolution to carry on with the full extent of our task. And we see this in our leaders in every sphere all the time. Pettiness and impishness and childishness that really doesn't become the office that they hold. There are times, my friends, when we cannot achieve healing because we are busy pointing out enemies that are not really enemies. We want to destroy what is not actually bad for us. And this preoccupation limits our own help and well-being. Are you today destroying or alienating a non-enemy and thereby affecting your healing? Are you fighting against your own well-being by directing your energies where your energies do not need to be? Are your wounds and hurt, your confusion and turmoil destroying the golden opportunity that you have right in your hands today? My friends, what a challenging story that we learn from Saul's life. What a deep and insightful stab into the place where some of us find ourselves struggling today. Well, that's the story of Saul. The third story is the woman with the issue of blood, found in Luke chapter 8. Now, you might say, Bishop, Naaman and Saul, I can see. But how does the woman with the issue of blood have anything to do with my life? Well, I'll tell you. In Luke chapter 8, we read about this woman with the issue of blood. We're not sure what the ailment was, but we know that it was a chronic, that is, a long-standing ailment. This wasn't just the cold or the flu. This was something with which she had battled for years. Issue of blood, we're not clear because the scriptures are often not defined or detailed when it comes to medical ailments. It may have been hemorrhoids, it may have been ulcers, it may have been some form of chronic uterine bleeding. You see, the Bible is very unclear because the understanding of the body and medicine was so limited in that time. Anyhow, this woman suffered for 12 years. She desired to be healed. Can you imagine how uncomfortable and shattering and destabilizing this was for her in the constant affair of this constant issue? Her whole life had to be organized around her ailment. Her overarching vision for herself was to be in a better physical state. She had time and money with so many doctors. She was so desperate that she dared to reach out. And listen to this now, listen to this. She was so desperate that she dared to reach out and touch a stranger, a noted teacher and miracle worker, whom some people were calling Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth. And he was somebody who was a male, not a female. Do you know how radical this would have been for a Jewish woman of the 1st century AD to reach out and touch a stranger, a man who was not her father, her brother, or her husband? Jewish women did not interact with males. on a casual basis. They did not touch males who were not their father, brother, or husband. But here now, listen to this. She was prepared to defy the norms, the conventions, the appropriatenesses, the Jewish gender roles, and the religious regulations as she sought to accomplish her vision, which was healing. And what this teaches us is that sometimes our desire for healing, for resolution, for wholeness, for building of bridges, for restoring of relationships, our desire for these things calls us to do desperate things, to take great risks, to step outside of the box, if we are going to find that healing or deliverance that we need. Maybe you are at a point where you see no simple option, no safe path, and your only option is to do something radical, to take a risk, to step outside of the norms, to step outside appropriateness and even expectation in order to lay hold on your breakthrough. I'm not telling you to do anything that's wrong, but I am saying that sometimes the only solution is something daring, dangerous, unpopular. Sometimes. As human beings, we get caught in being creatures of habit. It has always been this way. We've always done it this way. Or we say to ourselves, this is who you are. You dare not step out of the box, out of character, to do what has to be done because you've never done this before. My friends, what this teaches us is that sometimes healing, deliverance, calls for radical action. Sometimes we have to do desperate things in order to find resolution. Like the woman who ran into a burning house to rescue her 2 toddler children, burnt and scarred for the rest of her life, enduring great pain to save those 2 little babies of hers. That is an image of the kind of risk, daring, that must be ours. Think about this carefully, my friends. While we must be wise, exercise caution, consult advisors, weigh options, make our best decision, exercise our best stewardship, sometimes, as we run after that vision, which is ours, we have to be prepared for risk. And sometimes there is no option that does not involve danger and risk. Think about it. It may actually be the key to your solution today. And the final character I want us to focus on is Malchus. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, who is Malchus? Malchus was the servant of the Jewish high priest Caiaphas, and he participated in the arrest of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Malchus was not a soldier. He was not a special forces officer. He was a servant in the house of the high priest. But he went along when they went in company to arrest Jesus. The biblical account tells us that Simon Peter Jesus' disciple, when the company led by Judas approached Jesus and proceeded to arrest him, Simon Peter drew his sword and started swinging. He struck Malchus on the ear, cutting his ear off as he tried to stop these men from taking his beloved master. Now Jesus rebuked Simon Peter, and then Jesus healed Malchus's ear. John's gospel records the incident, naming Simon Peter and Malchus. Only Luke's gospel tells us that Jesus healed the servant. Now we have to assume that Malchus was a good Jew, that he was not a follower of Jesus. He may not even have heard Jesus' message. We only assume this because the Bible doesn't give us any details about Malchus. Malchus's vision was to be a good servant of the high priest. He went along routinely as a part of the group that went to arrest Jesus. He was wounded, and I'm sure he was no doubt shocked, traumatized, in great pain, and maybe even angry to just pick up a stray wound like that. That is how he saw himself that night. His challenge, if you could call it that, was that he did not know Jesus. He was suddenly and unexpectedly wounded. And I'm sure he thought that that was the end of his own story. He didn't think that he would be wounded at all. Of great significance is that Jesus healed Malchus right on the spot. Malchus didn't ask him to. He surely did not even imagine that such a thing would be remotely possible. And Jesus, he did not ask Malchus whether he wanted to be healed, whether it was all right, whether he would be invading his privacy or not. Jesus simply healed him. My friends, what this teaches us is that there is no limit to God's reach and God's healing of the human condition. God will even reach outside normal boundaries. He will bring healing despite race, color, creed, nationality, socioeconomic standing, sexual orientation, or criminal status. He will simply reach out and heal. God will not just heal those who claim Christianity. God will not just heal those whom we know and like. There is no limit or boundary to God's healing reach and power. And this is what the story of Malchus teaches us. God's ability to heal, God's proven track record are much bigger than our vision or outlook, bigger than our pride and prejudices. Do you know of a need for healing that is too big, too far, too difficult, and too much beyond your current jurisdiction? Maybe you think that a situation is impossible, or that some person is just beyond any remediation or repair. Maybe you feel that it would be imposing or getting into someone's business to tell them that they need healing and deliverance. But I tell you, ask God to make a difference, to reach out, to reach all the way over to where that person is, to touch their heart, to win their soul for him by some godly act. Malchus would have been a prime candidate for conversion. Jesus' act of healing, well, when Malcolm was there, with that group who came to arrest him could easily have moved Malchus to say, like the centurion at the foot of the cross, surely this man was the Son of God. My friends, our theme, and rightly so, is healing, obeying the vision, and responding to the challenge. All of our characters, Naaman, Saul, the woman with the issue of blood, and Malchus, teach us something about this theme and how this theme resides right in our lives and circumstances. In conclusion, my friends, I make the point that Jesus has the overall vision and expectation for all of us. In our circumstances, trouble, distress, pain, injury, sorrow, need, sickness, or any other adversity, Jesus has his vision, his way forward, his end point. Jesus also has a path to help each one of us to overcome our present circumstances and to get into a better place, all in an effort to bring us healing, the healing that we so desire, the healing that is a part of that abundant life which Jesus himself promised to bring. But the real key in all of this, my friends, is that we are the agents who not only expect healing ourselves in our circumstances, but who let others know of a God where this is entirely possible. We let others know of a God who can meet their circumstances, a God who can present them with a better way of living now, even if they didn't know him before. And so while we hold a vision for healing despite our challenges, remember that it is up to us to share a vision with others for a possibility of healing in their own challenges. What is God saying to you today? What are the circumstances that you are faced with? What is the hope and desire that you have for yourself? Who is that person out there that God needs you to reach out to in love? My friends, Jesus is a healer. Jesus wants to heal us. And Jesus wants to use us to heal others. Even that person so far away and so out of reach in so impossible a set of circumstances. Jesus wants to use us as his agents of healing. Thank you for listening to me. Amen.